Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into a really big milestone in your parenting journey, transitioning your baby from breast to bottle. Whether you're gearing up to head back to work or you're just feeling like the time has naturally come to close this chapter, weaning is a major step. It really is. We're going to break down exactly how to navigate this change using crystal clear, structured strategies drawn straight from health experts. My goal for us today is to give you a roadmap that brings absolute peace of mind to what can honestly feel like a pretty overwhelming process.
Now, before we get into the nuts and bolts, let's just acknowledge the emotional side of this for a second. Breastfeeding, it's an incredibly intimate bond between you and your baby. It's completely normal to feel a whole mix of emotions when you decide to stop. But I want to reassure you that whether you're stopping out of absolute necessity or just by personal choice, there comes a time when moving on is simply the right next step for you and your family. And you can absolutely do it in a way that deeply respects both your body and your baby's needs.
Okay, let's dive into this. The million-dollar question. How do you transition safely, painlessly, and most importantly, calmly? Look, if you rush the process, you risk some really uncomfortable, even painful complications. But if you follow a structured approach, you can step down your milk production smoothly while keeping your little one totally content. Today, we're giving you a clear, actionable solution to finally let go of any weaning anxiety you might be holding on to.
Here's the clear, step-by-step roadmap we'll be covering in today's explainer. 1. Time to wean. 2. Methods of weaning. 3. Using the weaning schedule. 4. Listening to your body. 5. When it's actually better not to stop. And finally, number 6, the step to follow on milk. All right, let's get right into it.
Time to wean, and why taking that first step slowly is absolutely crucial.
Listen, the very beginning of this journey is the most critical phase, and patience is definitely your best friend here. Your body doesn't just flip a switch and stop making milk overnight, right? If you try to force it, you are literally asking for trouble. We have to take this first step super slowly. The golden rule across all our expert sources is to allow 5 to 7 days per dropped feed. Taking it slow, giving it about a week for every single feeding session you cut out is biologically necessary. It gives your body the time it needs to realize the demand is dropped so it can dial back the supply naturally. If you rush this timeline, you massively increase your risk of severe engorgement and incredibly painful complications like mastitis. You really just have to let your body set the pace.
Moving on to Section 2, Methods of Weaning, and choosing the right approach for you. And this brilliantly illustrates your two main options for actually pulling this off physically. First, you can just replace a direct feed with a bottle. This means you skip one complete feeding at the breast and you give a bottle of formula or previously pumped milk instead. Pretty straightforward. Alternatively, if you're exclusively pumping or you just need a much more gradual shift, you can simply reduce the frequency of your pumping sessions by stretching the time out between them, or you can reduce the duration. So, for example, dropping from 15 minutes of pumping down to 12 minutes, then 8, and so on. Both ways are highly effective. It really just depends on whether you're dropping full sessions at once or slowly scaling back the volume over time.
Section 3. Using the weaning schedule. This is going to be your visual roadmap.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how wonderfully flexible a structured schedule can actually be. Having a visual roadmap like this basically takes all the guesswork out of the equation. It dynamically adapts based on whether your baby is currently having 7, 6, or 5 feeds a day. So you don't need some rigid, one-size-fits-all template. You just look at your baby's current 24-hour cycle and scale your steps to fit. Let's look at exactly how this maps out over a few weeks.
Take a look at this 7-week table. Think of it as your master blueprint. Notice how it systematically swaps out one breast feed for a bottle every 5 to 7 days. But here is the absolute golden rule, you guys. Never drop 2 consecutive feeds. Look closely at how the replaced feeds are spread out. For example, if you drop the second feed of the day, do not make the third feed the next one you drop. By alternating the dropped feeds, you keep your milk production evenly distributed throughout the day. That keeps your breasts from getting overly full and painful during long, uninterrupted blocks of time.
Okay, Section 4. Listen to your body and managing those pesky physical side effects.
Because look, even with the most perfect schedule in the world, your body might throw a bit of a tantrum. It's totally normal. It is absolutely crucial to listen to your body and know how to manage this transition comfortably. If you start feeling engorged, just follow these 4 simple steps. First, if you feel uncomfortable tension, acknowledge it. Second, and I can't emphasize this enough, pump strictly for comfort. You just want to pump off enough milk to relieve that tight tension and make the breast feel supple again. Do not empty the breast entirely.
Emptying it just tells your body, hey, make more milk, which totally defeats the purpose. Third, wait until your breasts feel naturally supple again over the next few days. Only then do you move to step 4, dropping the next feed on your schedule.
Section 5. When is it better not to stop? The critical exceptions to the rules. Sometimes life throws a curveball, and you hit a roadblock where the weaning process actually needs a temporary pause for the sake of your health or your baby's. Here are some scenarios where you might panic and think you need to stop right away, but you actually don't. If you're sick, you don't necessarily have to stop. Lots of meds are perfectly safe for breastfeeding. If your baby is teething, they can actually still nurse perfectly well without biting if you just watch their cues. Even with a new pregnancy, you can often keep feeding if you want to. But that third point on the list, mastitis, that requires a very specific approach.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. If you feel a breast infection coming on, or you're already dealing with active mastitis, do not start or continue the weaning process right now. Stopping or even just reducing your feeds while your breast is actively inflamed is like adding fuel to the fire, because the milk just gets trapped in there. You absolutely must ensure good milk flow by continuing to feed or pump until the infection completely clears up. Once you're fully healed, then you can safely pick your weaning schedule right back up.
Finally, Section 6, the step to follow on milk, and what exactly goes into that bottle. So once you're successfully dropping those breastfeeds, what exactly are you putting in the bottle to replace them as your baby gets a bit older? Well, around the 6-month mark, your baby's nutritional needs take a huge shift. So what exactly is follow-on milk, and why does your baby specifically need it at this stage, rather than just standard infant formula or, regular milk from the fridge?
Well, follow-on milk is formula designed specifically for babies in that 6 to 12-month sweet spot. And the main reason it exists? Iron. You see, during pregnancy, a baby builds up this amazing natural reserve of iron in their body. But right around 6 months of age, those natural iron stores pretty much run out completely. Follow-on milk is specifically designed with extra iron to replenish those stores right when your baby needs it most, especially if they're just starting to dabble in solid foods and aren't getting quite enough iron from their diet just yet.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Why not just use regular old cow's milk? Well, the comparison here is really stark. Follow-on milk has that perfect balance of iron and nutrients, right? But standard cow's milk? No way! It's actually highly dangerous as a main drink for babies under 1 year old. Cow's milk has levels of protein and salt that are just way too high for an infant's tiny body to process, and it can literally damage their developing kidneys. A tiny sip or a spoonful of yogurt, totally fine. But for full bottle feeds, it absolutely has to be follow-on milk, not cow's milk, until they hit that first birthday. And as you're standing there in the grocery aisle staring at a wall of formula options, keep this super surprising fact in mind. The composition of follow-on milk is strictly fixed by law. Yeah! This means that whether you grab the absolute cheapest store brand or the fanciest, most expensive premium brand on the shelf, they are equally nutritious. They all have to meet the exact same strict legal health requirements. So, you can totally take that pressure off yourself. There is literally no wrong choice here, as long as it's an age-appropriate follow-on formula.
We've covered a lot today. The timelines, the schedules, listening to your physical cues, and dialing in the nutrition. But at the end of the day, every mother and baby is totally unique. By taking it slow, avoiding those consecutive dropped feeds, and bringing in the right nutrition, you really can make this transition a calm, positive experience. So how will you design a weaning journey that brings peace and comfort to you both? Remember, listen to your body, trust your instincts, and hey, never hesitate to reach out to a lactation expert if you need a little extra support along the way. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I wish you absolutely all the best on your parenting journey.